We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Saturday, and I was looking forward to this day, especially after what happened the other day. Ed is our guest on the program. It's always good to hear from the elder statesman of the Rational Boomer podcast. He has some insights that none of us have because he was born at the beginning of time. So he's seen more things than we have. Ed, obviously, the first thing we got to talk about is this little breakup. I keep hearing Neil Sedaka singing "Breaking Up is hard to do." That was fucking
Yeah,
messy, and it escalated fast.
boy, didn't it? Boy, did it not. I think it all came down to is Elon got a look at the legislation and saw he wasn't getting the perks he thought he bought. And so he lost his mind, right? And then all of this drug stuff coming out too. Now, I don't know who's leaking that, but that's obviously too. Well, we had to get rid of him because he was a drug addict kind of stuff, right? Which he probably is, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But,
I think he is.
I mean, I've seen the video of him zoning out. Look at the pretty colors, and all of that, and all of his, jumping in the air and chainsaws and all of that junk. That you see, people who routinely use certain recreational aids, we'll say,
Yeah,
that and not the good ones, but
not the good ones.
no, but yeah, it's kind of fun. But I think we all knew that two narcissists in the same room almost always lead to trouble.
Yeah, it always leads to trouble. And I'm going to float something to you here, see what you think about this, because there's all kinds of people saying, "Oh, this is a distraction." They want you to be worried about this, and then they'll do something else. Or some people are saying this is the only way that Elon Musk can try to get back the money he's losing in Tesla and SpaceX by going against Donald Trump. And all that's well and good, but I think people, in my estimation, based on my experience with narcissists, it's not that deep. They're never
Mm.
that deep. They don't think that far in advance. This is what I've said. Um, Donald Trump and Elon Musk break up. Make no question, Donald Trump burned Elon Musk. I feel confident in saying that because he's burned everybody he's worked with.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is now cast aside after being burned, and he's pissed. So he thought he'd get him back with this complaint about the budget bill. If you notice, Donald Trump didn't say anything for a couple of days. Discretion's the better part of valor. That's not
Mm.
usually Donald Trump's strong point, but in this case, it 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 did seem to hold him back. But Donald Trump cannot control himself. And I think this is the pivot point to where this thing exploded. When he was asked about it in a press conference, he was still trying to be nice. He said, "Well, I'm disappointed in Elon. I think he's got Trump derangement syndrome." And the moment he said that, the moment he struck back, no matter how weak it was, the narcissist on that end go, "Well, fuck you," then it's on. And then it kind of proceeded from there. And then Donald Trump said, "Fuck you," it's on. And then it just kind of exploded. That's part and parcel how everything goes with narcissists. It's just
Yeah,
that this time you got two of them.
exactly. And then they're just button heads like this, and it keeps getting worse. I think Donald's the loser here, which he always is because he is a loser. But now Elon is saying, well, the reason he won't release the Epstein's files is because he's on every page, which we know. Don't we know that already?
It's
We
not like
do.
you and I haven't talked about this or thought that. I guess the plus is somebody on the Republican side is saying it, and they can't blame the Democrats for being liars. So this puts Donnie in a much more difficult situation.
Right, exactly. And I mean, the Republicans are kind of on the defensive right now anyway. You got Joni Ernst with her, everyone's going to die, and that did not play. Let me tell you, that did
Well,
not play.
neither did the snarky apology. That was even worse.
Exactly. Exactly. This is the thing. I mean, they live in this bubble where they think just saying nasty stuff is enough. It's not. It's never enough. And, that's all they've done. Literally, that has been the Republican stance since Newt Gingrich essentially is
Yeah.
say nasty stuff about the other side. Don't engage, just say nasty stuff. Keep lying, keep lying, keep lying, and eventually enough schmoes will believe you that maybe tide will turn your way, which eventually it did. And I'm happy to see this. It's not happening fast enough to suit me, but the more it can fall down, I mean, look, Elon came out of nowhere, kind of right at the end of the campaign. Remember, he
Right.
started showing up at the rallies and jumping in the air, and he threw in all of this money to Trump at the end. So they struck some sort of deal. You know, he went to Trump and said, "I will make you president. I will give you all the money you need." If you allow me then to basically come in and suck the country dry for my own benefit. And Trump went right along with it. We know that's what happened. I mean, he was using his um, doji boys or whatever you want to call them to backdoor all of the government information. Now he has it all and so forth, so he can walk away. He's got what he needs, right? But he was hoping for a lot more in direct subsidies and direct tax cuts and so forth for his enterprises that don't show up in the final bill. That big crappy bill. He's not getting what he wanted, and that's what this is all about.
Well, and to be perfectly honest with you, this bill was having all kinds of problems anyway because the Democrats and the media were successful in exposing what this is about. I mean, they wanted to debate this at 1 o'clock in the morning, so they wanted to shove this under the radar, but they haven't been able to do that, so people know what it's about. But Elon Musk, they won't admit to it, but him stepping aside and saying what he's saying, making it all that much tougher to sell this fucking thing.
Absolutely. And then you have all of these Republicans now going, well, I didn't know that was in there. Dude, that's your job.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's your job. And Joni Ernst, that's your job to know what's in there. I bet if you went in onto their website or their where you find their information, you would find they have staffs of 20 and 30 people. And granted that every representative may not be able to read every page of the bill because it comes quickly and so forth, which is
Right.
bullshit. I mean,
Yeah,
I can read 500 pages in a couple of hours, and
yeah.
that's taking bathroom breaks, right? You're supposed to be, you're supposed to have the intellect to decipher the language, which they try very hard, of course, to obfuscate a lot of times, but you should still be able to read a bill and know what's in it, right? If you're not doing it, how can you claim your salary? Because if you're in any job and you're not doing the basic function of that job, you should be fired. So all
Well,
of these
yeah.
Republicans who say, I didn't know what was in there, should be fired.
If nothing else, you probably have 4 or 5 staffers. Get them all read sections and then give you the cliff notes at the end. At least have
Exactly.
some clue as to what it's about and maybe come up with those things that might stick out that aren't a good idea. But that's not how they do business. They have it written by whoever writes this Federal Society or whatever. They write this shit and they just sign their name. They
Yeah.
never know what they're signing. They're
Mm-mm.
just handing it off to somebody else, taking their payments from whoever's paying them, the oligarchs, and they just sign off on it. They don't give a fuck what's in it.
No, and that's the way it has been for some time. And I'd love to say the Democrats are better, but often they're not. That's
No.
how a lot of stuff gets in there. And then we see how can any Republican, I don't care how bedrock Republican you are, how can you look at Trump's pardons just the past couple of weeks, see who he chose to pardon, and
Yeah.
see what they were doing, robbing Medicare, robbing investors. I mean, just blatantly doing so. He pardons them, and they don't, not only do they not have to go to jail, but they don't have to give restitution to the people that they stole from. How can you justify that morally, especially you Christian nationalists? How can you justify that morally? How can you say, well, God chose this guy? Yeah, right. Come on. If you got any gray matter left, use it. Good Lord.
I did I did a live last night And, generally when I do lives, it's all people of a like mind.
Mhm.
But a Trumpafuck got in this time. And when I first heard him talking, I thought, oh, this isn't going to go well, but it'll get some shit off my chest. But the guy came on and he said, look, I voted for Trump in 2016, 2020, 2024. I'm thinking to myself, I already don't like this motherfucker. I'm ready to go. Let's put up the dukes and let's fucking go. But then he said that he regrets um, he regrets voting for Donald Trump. Um, and one of his problems is the marginalizing of minorities and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and the fact that people aren't truly patriotic anymore. And I asked him a simple question. I said, "Look, I'm curious as to what's going on now that you don't like, because prior to the election, the 34 felony convictions, the adjudication for sexual assault, the stealing of classified documents, obviously that didn't matter to you. That wasn't enough to get you to say no. It's not now. Is it because it's affecting you, or what's the deal?" And he went on to say, um, I just thought, you know, with the DEI stuff, that we just all be together and somebody wouldn't get an advantage because of their color and we'd be paid. This guy in his heart, from what he said, seemed to be coming from the right place, but he was just woefully uninformed or
Yeah.
misguided. And then when that happens, I have to think, well, because you voted for Donald Trump, I don't care who you are, what you say right now, I don't trust you at all. I don't believe anything you say. But it really tells you how much the media has played a part in this. If that all that stuff happened and it wasn't important enough for him until it started hitting home or hitting the people around him, that's tragic because he doesn't have a fucking clue what's going on the last 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to believe that's a goodly portion of it, in that people like him, and I don't know him. I'm just going on what you're telling me here. If he's that uninformed, he probably watches Fox News.
Yeah.
His algorithm on his phone is feeding him nothing but right wing talking points from various and sundry different outlets and so forth. There's nothing getting through to him in that way. He probably hangs out with people of a like mind. And that's pretty much how it goes. They are literally in a bubble. They do not know what sources are trustworthy. They only go to the ones that reinforce what they already think. And believe me, I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, whatever it may be. If you're only going to sources that you agree with, you're not doing your job as a rational human being. At least get a balance. Check on Fox News once in a while and see what they're saying. Even check out OAN or check the comments on your local TV news station, news site, so that you can see what people around you are thinking. And believe me, where I am, it's pretty damn scary. But but at any
Perfect
rate,
example.
pardon?
No, I would say a perfect
Yeah,
example of the media
yeah.
is yesterday. We're recording this on Friday afternoon. Yesterday, Thursday, the biggest story was Elon Musk and Donald Trump fighting. Donald
Mhm.
Trump saying he's going to take away Elon Musk contracts. Elon saying that Donald Trump is buddies with Jeffrey Epstein. This is some big
Yeah,
shit. This is some
yeah.
bombshell
Nothing.
shit. But you know what they were talking about on Fox News?
Mm-mm.
The investigation into Joe Biden's cognitive abilities.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow.
I mean, this is thing. I talk about your red herring, right? We
Yeah.
know, we saw Joe. We know that he had a few moments. He certainly at the debate he wasn't prepared, and maybe toward the end. But how's that different from Reagan? I mean,
Yeah.
Reagan was a literal vegetable by the time he was done. And we know that. We saw him faltering on camera all the time. We saw Nancy whispering him stuff and so forth. I thought Joe should have recused himself after his first term and said, I'm a transitional president. Now we're going to have a convention and we're going to come up with a viable candidate. And that's that. And if he had done that, we wouldn't be dealing with Trump now. But that's the way it was. I do think he was perfectly rational. I think he was at the helm And he met with foreign leaders and so forth. And some people found him to be faltering, and they talked about it. I mean, there were op-eds written and so forth, and ultimately it was dealt with that he wouldn't be able to do a second term. He seems to think he could have, but maybe everybody does. Maybe people are not aware of their own shortcomings sometimes, or they're blinded by whatever. But at any rate, he was no different than Reagan, except Reagan was far worse. We're looking at Trump on a daily basis, wandering away from his limo and walking off stage in the wrong place and rambling with the leader of Germany here in his office, and he is blathering. He's blathering about crap. And the guy's sitting there going, my God, what is this? You can see it on his face.
Oh, no question about it. And he's got to be embarrassed himself. Here's the thing about Joe Biden. They're doing an investigation about his cognitive ability. Okay. Whether
Mhm.
he had, whether his he has diminishing mental capacity during that term or not. Here's what we do know for a fact, for sure. In his first 2 years, anyway, as president of the United States, he may have been the most productive president in history. So whether he was diminished or not, he was effective. And secondly, he's a private citizen now. It really doesn't impact anything now. Whatever happened with him is behind us. Now we have another president who obviously is diminished to a certain extent, and the country's going to shit. To me, it seems more logical to focus on the problem at hand as opposed to what happened fucking last year or the year before. It's ridiculous, and it's status quo for Republicans because they don't have any policy, they don't have any strategies, they have no platform. Their only strategy is to attack whoever their opponent is, and they don't have one going to 2028 yet, so that's all they got.
And what's different about right now, of course, is that they have I won't call it a game plan exactly, but it's something that was written for them by the Heritage Institute. It's Project 2025. And that is what, they're not writing this big, beautiful bill. It was written for them, and it has
Right.
provisions in it to try to destroy the American form of government, to essentially get rid of safeguards, to take away any sort of restraint on corporations, to destroy the legal system, court system, to make it subservient to the executive. These are things that are in the big, beautiful bill. There
Right.
are tax provisions that shift the tax burden draconically upon the poorest people there are. And people making less than $15,000, people making less than $30,000, they'll see their taxes go up by 70% over the life of that bill. 70%. And it's even higher. I believe it's actually 74% for the lowest wage workers, while the billionaires see more and more tax cuts. This is what's in this bill. This is what's going on. And this is where the news media, pretty much across the board, is deficient. These should be the headlines, not whether Joe Biden did this or did that. He's not the fucking president anymore, people. And
Yeah.
neither is Ronald Reagan, and neither is George Bush, who never had a good day when he was intellectual day. I mean, this is water under the bridge. Let's focus on what's important right now. We have a president who's a moron, who knows nothing, who only does what is best for him and his millionaire buddies, and really he'd turn on them in a second if it was to his advantage. We see him doing that with
He
Elon
just did
Musk.
that with Elon. Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
just did that. Well, what they're doing with this bill is pretty much status quo or
Mm.
standard procedure for any bullies.
Yeah.
The Republicans do it. Let's go after transgender folk. They're less than 1% of the country, but they're weak. We can pound on them. Let's steal money from people. Let's get it from the poor people. They have no power. They can't do anything. They'll just have to sit there and take it. This is what they do. Let's be the deportation people that are going to deport millions and millions of people every day, and they're having trouble doing it. They haven't even deported as much as Obama. So they've gone away from the criminals and gang members, and they're just going after soft targets as far as deporting people. This is what they do. They're hitting the low hanging fruit. the weakest among us, and this is how they exercise what they perceive as power. And it's the same thing across the board. Every circumstance, it's about going after weaker people.
Exactly. And let's emphasize that for a moment. They're showing up and grabbing people who are reporting for their immigration appointments. They're grabbing them. They're sent a letter, come in, we will discuss your immigration status, whatever. They have to show up. They do. They grab them. I won't say arrest because they don't have authority in most cases. They grab them and disappear them, and the next thing you know, they're in a prison in El Salvador, or they show up at workplaces like Kid Rock's restaurant in Nashville. They show up and take all of his kitchen staff and deport them because,
Yeah.
as you say, they know they're there. They know where to find them. It's always been that way. When you see mass arrest, it's always people who are working for a damn living. You know, they're
But you,
either processing meat or they're doing stuff in the fields or whatever. Now, you just had an incident there in Minneapolis on Lake
I was going
Street
to
in the
bring that
last,
up. Yeah.
yeah, of this. Apparently, they did a raid a few years ago and then they came back and did this big raid. And it wasn't just ICE, it was ICE and their thugs, many of whom were at the Capitol on January 6th. We know that. That's why they wear masks. They don't want to be identified. They're not deputized people, they are thugs, and the ICE forced to work with ICE. The real ICE agents probably hate them, but these are people are all cowards. The crowd forced them down. They backed away. They ran. That's what I saw anyway. Maybe you saw more about it. Maybe you could inform me more about what went on.
Well, I've heard more about it. First of all, it wasn't even an immigration issue. Like
Exactly.
tax evasion or whatever. And then of course, there were ICE agents there too. Why, I don't know.
I
But I was
ATF. Yeah.
ATF, all this stuff. I mean, it was overkill by anybody's imagination. But when I'm watching it, I'm watching this, and these people are protesting and pushing back, and Minneapolis police is there, Hennepin County Sheriff is there, and for all I see at that point is they're in on the raid. That's why they're
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
which wasn't the case. They were there for more of the protesters. But I'm looking at the Minneapolis police. I'm thinking to myself, don't you have enough fucking problems than to be in cahoots with ICE? This isn't going to play well. And I said that. And then later on, we had the chief of police and some other people come out and say, well, we talked to the feds and how they can handle this better. This wasn't this and this wasn't that. But the media said this, and it was irresponsible and people can get hurt. And they also said it's clear as to what the climate in this country is for this sort of thing. And you should take note of this. If ICE is coming into your community, whether it be Massachusetts or Minnesota or San Diego, people are going to push back. You can't just sweep people off the sidewalk with no kind of warrant, no kind of arrest, no evidence, and just take them away. People aren't going to stand for that anymore. They aren't in Minneapolis or California or Boston or wherever.
I think they've been pretty restrained so far, quite frankly. I really do believe, and I hope this doesn't happen. I'm not suggesting that it should. I'm just saying that I have viewed history. I understand what happens sometimes. It may be, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but maybe these whole high profile things that ICE is doing, maybe, I don't think it's Trump, but there's somebody behind Trump, Stephen Miller or something, wants so much to declare martial law. They want so much to be able to put the military in to put down civilian protests. They're praying there will be violence against ICE agents and the thugs who accompany them. They're praying for that. They're hoping for that. They're pushing for that. So what they're doing is very egregious and it's very public because that's what they want. They want the power then to just crack down on everybody, arrest everybody, American citizens or not, because make no mistake, and this is inflammatory to degree, but I have to say it because it ICE and the thugs who accompany them have very much become the Gestapo. They
Oh,
really
no
have.
question.
There is a legitimate function. for what they do if they are reined in. And they are not at this point. They are able to just do whatever the hell they want. And don't get me started on the Minneapolis Police Department. I worked there. I worked in Minneapolis for 50 years, a
Yeah.
goodly portion of it in media, about 30 of it in media in the Twin Cities. The police unit is headed by an avowed white supremacist. They've
Yeah.
always been thugs, and the good ones get corrupted.
Yeah,
They
they
do.
do. I grew up in the third precinct area, which is where the George Floyd thing happened, and
Yeah,
the third precinct is the one that was taken over. In the 70s, when I was growing up, the Minneapolis Police Department was referred to by teenagers as the Goon Squad
yeah,
because they would literally grab some kid, and it didn't make a difference if they were white or black. Maybe it was worse if they were black, but we didn't have, it was mostly white where I lived, and they would kick the shit out of the kid before giving them a ticket. And
yeah.
that was fairly common. It never happened to me. I got a ticket here and there, and maybe I was white enough to not get that kind of treatment, or at least I was respectful enough when I got caught because I was terrified. But they've been known for that, and I didn't understand why they'd want to get involved in the ICE thing. And apparently they didn't. They were, you know, who called the police?
Mhm.
The fucking feds called the police.
Uh-huh.
The feds called the police because they were worried about the protesters.
Yeah.
And that's why the Hennepin County sheriff and the Minneapolis Police Department came. I, you talked about martial law, and a lot of people are worried about martial law. And I've talked to some other folks. They're trying very hard to cause a lot of disturbance on the streets. I've talked to people of color. People have made the statement there aren't as many black people showing up to these things because they know they're going to be the first ones
Yep.
arrested or clubbed or whatever. Um, but everything's been done uh, pretty well so there isn't violence, and you may be right that that's frustrating them because they're trying to incite that violence so they can claim martial law. I just don't see how martial law works in this country with as many people already pissed off. I mean, you can have the military come in, but maybe not all the military follows suit in this situation. And there are millions and millions and millions of people out there. I don't know how they even pull it off. I see it like a South Korea type thing. They tried, but it didn't work.
Well, what they would try to do, I mean, is quite simply, they know that in Minnesota there is a liberal administration right now in power. I assume the mayor of Minneapolis may also be liberal. I don't know that
Yeah,
for a fact, and I
yeah, he
do for
is.
St. Paul. So they're not going to say, well, we're nationalizing the Minnesota National Guard in order to restore order. They're not going to do that. What they're going to do is nationalize the Mississippi National Guard and send them in. See,
Right.
this
Yeah,
is
you're
what they will
absolutely
do. They will pull people from, and then you'll have Kent State all over again. That kind of thing. And we've talked about this before. Let me remind people that during the George Floyd riots,
right. Yeah.
those were inspired by people sent in by the Trump administration to burn things, to break windows, to get things rolling. We know that for a fact. I know people in St. Paul and in the government there who say this happened. We had black SUVs running all over town, St. Paul, Minneapolis, into the suburbs, stirring things up. We have video of them doing it. We know some of them were white supremacists that were sent in specifically for this purpose. And what got burned? Black owned business, Hispanic businesses. This is the ones who suffered. This
Yeah,
is what went
exactly.
down. I mean, this is what that was part of the plot to destroy that corridor on Lake Street that was largely minority owned, kind of like Tulsa, right? You
Right.
saw you saw this economic activity that was benefiting minorities. You got to wipe it out, and this is the perfect opportunity, and they did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot. This whole thing wasn't planned with George Floyd to just tear down uh, that corridor, but they're very
They exploit,
opportunistic.
right?
Every time something happens, they go, "Well, how can we fucking gain some ground on this shit?" Um, the it's interesting to see how many people are standing up and pushing back. It's good to see that in a country that I've thought for decades was nothing but apathetic, and they just sat back, watched Wheel of Fortune, and let shit happen. People are awakened in a lot of ways, and they're pissed about it. I did in doing these lives. People are either terrified or pissed or a combination.
Well, you should be one or the other, and probably both.
Yeah.
Uh, you should be scared of what they're going to try to do, and you should be motivated to push back. It's that simple. I mean, if we're gonna have the country that we need to have, which we've never had, by the
No.
way, we have never had the perfect utopia here. It's always been a small number of people who do really well, a larger group who do sort of well, and then a whole shitload of people who do really badly. That's the
No.
America. That's America, right? It got a little bit better between, say, 1948, 1972. It got better, but not for everybody, and it didn't last long. And now we have this big, beautiful bill. They're trying to throw God knows how many people. There's different estimates, but I saw
I've,
Speaker
I've heard
Johnson on
I've heard between
TV.
11 and 18 million.
Yeah, in that neighborhood. And they were saying, well, you have 300,000 people in your district alone who are going to lose SNAP benefits. You have this many are going to be thrown off Medicare. What do you say about that? And he said, well, they need to because they're not working. They're not, they don't deserve it, which is bullshit. Number one, SNAP mostly goes to children and to families that really need food assistance who are working. Same thing with Medicare, Medicaid, mostly going to people who are working but don't make enough. And then we have this other dipshit congressman whose name I don't remember saying the best solution is to have a job. Well, about 50% of jobs do not provide health care in this country, which is a shame. But we could make it much easier with just universal health care. That's the best solution right there. But if you're a dipshit Republican congressman, you're gonna say that you're gonna demonize the poor, and then you're gonna raise their taxes on top of it. You're gonna get rid of their SNAP benefits. You're gonna take away their Medicaid, and you're gonna raise taxes. Oh, no taxes on tips. No taxes on cash tips. If it goes on the credit card, they still get taxed.
They do, and yeah, they're going to give you a
Yes.
tax credit or something, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
which amounts to
amount
nothing.
to. Yeah, it amounts to nothing pretty much.
Plus, they raise
Uh,
your tax progressively every 2 years for 10 years until you're paying 74% more than you pay now, 15,000 a year, which doesn't even pay your rent here in Tennessee.
I wanted to ask you this because I'm not clear on it. See if you know. People will complain about Joe Biden's taxes, and it's clarified to them that Joe Biden had no tax
Mhm.
plan in place in the time he was president. It's all Donald Trump from 2017. Now
Right.
there were tax cuts there, mostly for the wealthy.
Yeah.
Uh, we got a little bit, but it was sundown and in a short period of time. Now, if they don't pass this bill,
It
those
stays the
those
same.
I thought the tax breaks wear off though, or come off. Is
Not the corporate ones.
oh
Only
okay.
ours. See where we lost was that in exchange for a lower rate, which we did get for the first couple of years, slightly lower rate, depending on your income level, of course. But let's say the poor folks like you and me, right?
Yeah.
And less. We got a little bit of tax break there for a couple of years, and then it went up, and then it went up every 2 years. Then it went up, right? And what we did get was they raised the personal exemption a little bit, but we lost things like mortgage insurance. Couldn't deduct
Right.
that anymore. So we
Right.
lost as much as we gained. They always structure these bills so that they're paying for corporate malfeasance, essentially. That's what it's all about. And that's what it's about this time. And not only that, what they're doing is raising the debt limit. We had these battles all through Obama, all through Biden, always going to shut down the government. And the last minute, they would raise the debt limit a little bit. Republicans are going to raise it right at the beginning, so they never have to go through that. They never have to face that every few months where they have to raise the debt limit or not. They're going to raise it so high that they don't have to worry about through Trump's term and hopefully whoever is next, because even if he were able to run in 2028 and win, what would he be like? I
Yeah.
mean, he would be
Yeah.
some sort of, even more of a babbling pudding than he is now.
Well, the thing about the debt limit, though, Donald Trump wants just to get rid of it completely.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and honestly, I don't know that that's a bad idea. I mean, we went through this where the Republicans wanted to hold the debt limit
Mm,
down and shut down the country and all those stuff. We can't increase the debt.
mm,
Um, but there is no other country that has that situation anymore, the debt
mm.
limit where
No.
you end up fucking around with this for about a month, trying to get it passed and people pissing and moaning about it. The debt limit thing is ridiculous because the debt limit comes down to nut cutting time after you've
Mm,
spent the money.
mm. Yeah,
It's not like
exactly.
you can cut the budget for next time. But this is after the fact. This is all money they've already spent. And all they're saying is, well, we spent all this money, but we're not going to raise it. So that means we're not going to pay the money that we owe. It just never made sense. And that's why most countries have just got rid of it. Um, the only reason it stays here is the same reason we had the filibuster, because when the Democrats are in control, the Republicans love the power of the filibuster
Mm.
and the debt limit. When the Republicans are in power, it's just the opposite. This
Yeah,
is
it's
just
purely.
a fucking tool that they use against each other, and it does no good for us.
It's a political tool, and that's why we have to take a good hard look at all politicians, Democrat, Independent, Republican, see what they do. That it's on you, it's on me, it's on everybody listening to this. If you're not paying attention to what your representatives and senators are voting for, it's on you. They're screwing you left and right daily. And yet you're going to vote for them again because you go in there and you look and there's an R. Okay, I'll vote for the R, or a D. I'll vote for the D. You don't know who these people are. You don't know what. That's why my representative right now, the woman who represents me, should be in prison just like her husband was. But no,
Right.
she gets to sit in the Senate, collect $174,000 a year and millions in other perks and so forth, and stock tips from lobbyists and all of that. We have to hold these people accountable, no matter what their party designation is. We saw Bob Menendez go down. He was a Democrat, and quite frankly, he went down because he should have, and
Yeah.
nobody tried to stop it. The Democrats said, okay, he's a bad dude, he's gone. We saw the most ridiculous Santos, the most ridiculous representative in the history of the House, probably hang on for 2 years, and only because they wanted his vote and they wouldn't do anything about him. It's just insane that we let these people get away with this. But we have pushes now at shove right now.
Yeah.
There is no going back. We either stop this shit or we're done.
Yeah, one of the most disappointing things I see with the country when it comes to all the things Trump-fucks do, even the Democrats do, as far as getting information. I've always complained about the media. They're the reason for the divisiveness in this country. They tell different stories, so you can't even argue with somebody because they don't know half the shit you know, and vice versa. But I think a lot of the problem in this country is that not all people, of course, not anybody that listens to the podcast, but people
No.
in this fucking country are lazy, fucking
Yes.
lazy. They look at headlines and they think that's the total story. Well, I read headlines all the time, and 99% of the time has nothing to do with the story or
No.
doesn't appropriately uh, give you information about it. But people in this country are lazy. It was apathetic for so long where they didn't get involved at all. Now they will go get a headline and they'll ride or die with that fucking headline, whether it's right or not. People have to be a little better at discerning truth and facts. People have to be a little more motivated to understand what's going on. And I think we're starting to get that a little bit because people are being put on the cutting block. You know, people are finally feeling some pain. So maybe that wakes people up to be a little more motivated to find out what's fucking true.
Absolutely. And I think we do need to create some sort of, not the FCC because they're just hollow now, really, when it comes
Yeah.
down. We need some sort of national watchdog group or something that says to TV stations in particular, because that's what people want, and we have to include cable and we have to include streaming, so that there has to be some accountability for when you put a story out there that there is, you have to be able to back it up, not just innuendo, not with some guy sitting off camera blocked out with his voice um, somehow or other, distorted, and this is your source. No, yeah, you almost have to do it like a court proceeding or something, that the truth must be told. When there's a presidential debate, as soon as the debate is over, then you have a panel that you have brought in of citizens or informed people to go over what was said and the truth told. Otherwise, there's just no point to it. I was thinking the other day, when I was a kid, there were three networks, of which we only got two, right? But mostly, I saw what everybody else saw. When I could go to school on Monday morning, I knew what people were going to talk about. The Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. So and so did this. So and so did that. Ironsides was really good this year. But
Right.
everybody was looking at one viewpoint. They were hearing from the same sources. Now we have so much cacophony of information. Nobody knows what to believe. Your average person doesn't know what to believe. That's why Mike and I are here to tell you what's true.
I think the Democrats could learn something from the Trump administration. I know that sounds crazy,
Mhm.
but hear me out on this. It's being said that Donald Trump doesn't read his daily briefings because it's boring to him. He doesn't want to read it. He's read 14 daily briefings since he's been in office, and he's been in office, what, 130 days or something like that?
Yeah.
He's read 14
Mhm.
of them. So they're trying to figure out how to get him to see more of that. And what they've decided, or one person has decided to
Mhm.
do, oh, we'll create kind of a program that's a
Yeah.
lot like Fox News, that talks like Fox News, and that delivers it like Fox News, and then maybe he'll watch it every day. That to me is like a microcosm of the entire country because it's not always in this day and age, it's not always about content, it's about delivery. It's
Yes.
keeping people's attention,
Yeah.
entertaining them. I used to give talks, and,
Puppets.
and
Puppets would be good.
puppets would be good, but I used to give talks in front of crowds, and I'd come dressed like this. I'd tell some jokes and talk some shit, and I got a good response from it. And there's always somebody there with the charts and the computers, and they told all the facts. They spent a
Mhm.
half hour telling all the facts that people needed to know. When the panel was done, everybody who came up to the panel came to me,
Yeah.
not because I was brilliant, but because I got their attention by
Mhm.
kind of being entertaining. It wasn't hard because nobody else was fucking entertaining. They had valuable information, but people don't fucking listen. It's how you deliver it. That's why Joe Rogan has such impact on the Republican side. If he switched to Democrat, he'd have the same kind of impact on the Democratic side. We got to look at how we deliver news, where we deliver news, and how we get that information out. The facts aren't enough. It's about the show.
Absolutely. And it's tragic that we have to say that, but it is absolutely the truth. But remember Walter Cronkite, somehow or other, he established himself as trustworthy, and people trusted him. They knew that
Right.
if he said it, it was the truth as best it could be discerned. The And then we've lost that ability to trust, for one thing, because we've been lied to so much. I mean, Trump never tells the truth because if he did, he wouldn't be president. But everybody stretches it a little bit, and it pisses me off when that happens, especially if it's someone that I'm pulling for, because um, I want them to be as hard on themselves and the people that they admire as they are on Trump. I want them to be able to say, well, no, that's not exactly true. Here's the fact. I think that's how you establish trust, is that you always are even-handed and you always tell the truth as best it can be to be determined. Obviously, sometimes you're going to be wrong. Sometimes you'll get some bad information or something, but if you're going at it with the idea that you will tell the truth, then you belong in the media. If you are going into it, but the idea that I will spin it so that it works best for the people that I want to win, you don't deserve to be in the media. I don't care on what level. Fox News should be closed down because people think that they're news and they're not. They're just propaganda. And that needs to be hammered home. All the other networks should be saying that on a daily basis. But the problem is, it's hard for them to do that when they're doing it too.
Fox News, understand that the term news isn't a category, it's the title.
Right.
They specifically called it Fox News. And you brought up Walter Cronkite.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big things about Walter Cronkite, he was the most beloved and trusted man in America.
Yeah.
One of the reasons he was that way, because there were no other options. He
Right.
was the guy standing there and he was telling the truth and he was doing well. The problem is we have so many options now. And when Walter Cronkite was talking, there was nobody on some other channel going, "Oh yeah, I got this conspiracy theory and that conspiracy
Mm-hmm.
theory, and it's sexy and it's salacious, and they want to get sucked into that because that's more interesting to listen to." That didn't exist back in the day. In fact, a lot of the corruption and scandal was hidden from us in those days. The media didn't report on it. The moment the media started reporting on it, and we've got the internet, we've got streaming, we've got network news, we've got all this shit. We got, you can get shit on your phones via text. The fact that you got all those options, you pick the one that entertains you the most, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
you believe because, well, it's on the internet, it must be real. So we can't stop all these other people from doing the wrong thing. We just have to come up with a better
Mm-hmm.
way to do the right thing, to get that
Exactly.
attention. I mean, it's like getting ratings in radio and TV. What do we do in radio? We have a fucking contest. We do a special event, something that attracts people to your outlet. And unfortunately, that's what we have to do in the media thing. I mean, look at me. I'm a novelty. I'm an old white guy sitting in my living room cussing every 10 seconds. That's a fucking novelty. I'll watch that idiot because he's weird. He's different. And that's what I mean. We've got to be more creative in how we deliver facts and truth so we can keep people's attention.
Well, that you're absolutely 100% right. And I do what I do on a much more limited scale than you do. But when I put something up on TikTok, most of the comments I get, they talk about my delivery. They talk about
Right.
how I don't preach, how I provide a through line on a topic or something like that. But they talk very much about the delivery. And that's what you're talking about. For whatever reason, I'm able to project um, somewhat honesty or authority or something on the topic I'm speaking about. And I don't claim any particular talent on that. It's just the talents I was given and have developed along the way because I did news for 30 years and I did a lot of stage acting and so forth. So I tuned to my instrument, as they say in the
Oh, yeah.
theater, but still, that if I were just reading something off a piece of paper, no one would watch. No one would watch
No.
for 5 to 7 minutes while I talk about whatever it may be. And So you're right. You have to have a certain level of production. You are very glib. I mean, you made your living for many years talking extemporaneously,
Yeah.
whether in
Yeah.
front of a crowd or in front of a microphone. You have your thoughts organized. You're able to talk without stumbling or losing your train of thought and so forth. Much better than I do. I need a reference. I need to think it out and write it out because I like the written word as well as the spoken word. And you put the two together, and I think it works. So we're different in a way, but at the same time, we are providing some sort of level of expertise that people seem to be able to tune into.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with what you're doing, and I tested this out for myself. Um, you're a good storyteller, and people love a good story. They love a good story, and you're able to take this information and make it an interesting story. So they're getting the information, but they're also being entertained by somebody who can tell a good story, and that's why it works so well. I have a second Rational Boomer account. Don't talk about politics much at all. I love to tell stories, funny stories about when I was interviewing sports guys or working in Arizona or working in the music business. I thought, okay, well, let's see if people will be interested in me not talking about politics and just talking about stories in my life that I tell everybody all the time anyway. They're fucking tired of them. So I just did that. And it surprised me that people related to it and listened to it. And it worked out. And for me, it's very cathartic for me to do that. Doing this all the time isn't hard for me to do. Doing the politics because I care about it and I'm interested in it. But sometimes you just want to try to entertain somebody,
Mhm.
and that and you're able to get the entertainment value and the informational value, and that's why people uh, watch. Everybody I talk to on this show offers something I don't, because I am
Mhm.
very limited in what I offer. I got Eric on here. He knows the details down to the fucking centimeter. And I learn a lot. When you're on, you have a different perspective of everything. We're like mind essentially, but you have more experience and a different perspective of this. And and when I do the live shows, I bring in a lot of people from the audience to talk that we don't know.
Mhm.
Just and I think that's the key. Get your information, but the more people talking, the better off we have. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be Mike up here pontificating. There's got to be listeners or people like you or on the lives, people out of the crowd. I can't do anything on my own, and neither can you. But if we can create other people talking and them talking to other people, that's where the power is.
Oh, absolutely. I have someone who just recently found my TikTok thing, and she happens to be a limo driver in Minneapolis, and
Oh,
she
wow.
has a unique perspective. She's driving around the rich and powerful all the time, and here's she's, you know, I know this for a fact from having been in service industry and some early on that you're invisible. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're very much invisible, and they people will say things not thinking about that you're aware of what they're talking about. So that's very interesting. I'm glad she is providing me with some information on occasion.
Well, and those people that work those jobs that see what they see and they appear invisible to everybody else, they have some great stories too.
Mhm.
I mean, they've
Yeah.
heard some shit or seen some shit that is just interesting. I'd love to talk to some of those people because uh, I'm naturally curious. I go to a fucking garage sale and I'll stand and talk to the husband for an hour. It drives my wife nuts. But I'm curious as to what people think and what their experiences are. And that's the one thing I tell people. They go, "What's the key to getting older?" And I said, "Stay curious and continue to chase something. Doesn't have to be anything big, but have something you're shooting for and be curious. Try to find out about everything. And there's no reason not to. It's the people who sit at home watching Wheel of Fortune, drinking a beer,
Mhm.
and vegetating. Those are the people that go through cognitive and physical problems. You got to still live life every fucking day."
You do. I'd be an elevator listener too. One of my favorite stories that happened years ago. I get on an elevator in the Hennepin County Government Center. Now, for people who don't know Minneapolis, it's an edifice downtown, and it's where the courts meet. But there's all kinds of government offices in there too. I don't
Right.
remember what exactly I was in there for, but I had to go way up in the building, so I got on the elevator on like the third floor, and I'm going up, and it's stopping, and people getting on and off, and there's this young woman standing next to me, very Birkenstock, serape, kind of counterculture looking young lady, and then this.
Bohemian.
Yeah, this suited up guy gets on, and they're there, and she looks at him. And she said, "Did you used to be in the social work program at the U?" And he nodded, and she said, "Oh, I thought so. I thought I remembered you. Are you still doing that?" And he said, no, no, I actually decided I hate people. And she said, what are you doing now? And he said, I'm an attorney.
Well, you're in the right fucking job. No, people are hilarious when you listen to them.
Yes,
They're, they're,
absolutely.
they're absolutely hilarious. And too many people, whether it be the media or just life in general, they live in this little circle. Open your ears up and look around. There's some funny shit going on out there. It's just, I mean, this last week, I spent 4 days with my granddaughter sleeping over. And people will say, "Oh, that's hard." It's intensive, but I love doing it. My son and my daughter-in-law had a new baby, and they wanted to kind of get the first week to settle in, and it's just and people say, "Oh, it must have been tough with that little kid," and because they do this, I go, "She's fucking 5. If you don't
Yeah.
understand what a 5-year-old does, then you might be disappointed. She does some goofy shit. She says some goofy stuff. But give people enough credit for being who they are and give them the room to be themselves. And you can learn a fucking lot. You can learn a lot about what's going on in this world because it's not just in your little circle. I wanted to talk more about this whole Elon Musk Donald Trump thing
Yeah.
and see what you think about this. I've said all along, because we're dealing with malignant narcissists, mostly with Donald Trump, but since Elon's in the mix too, uh, there's a standard arc to malignant narcissists. They fly high for a while, they bullshit, they bamboozle, they full of bluster, and they're successful for a time, and then they hit their peak, and then people start to catch on what's going on because all the things they're claiming aren't necessarily coming true. And as I said, with two malignant narcissists, no way they can coexist. People said, "Well, you predicted this." I go, "Well, it wasn't hard to predict." I said, "Not only are they going to have a breakup, but it's going to be ugly on top of it because these people are just all emotional.
Yeah.
If you call me a poopy butt, I'm going to say as a narcissist, you're a double poopy butt. And then you're
Yeah.
going to double and triple down, and it's going to escalate very quickly, exactly what we saw. So to me, that tells me we're on the far downside of this narcissistic reign here, that the crash is imminent. And I think they're going to try to tamp this one down, but the damage has already been done to a certain extent. People are already talking about it. Do you think this tells us we're headed in the right direction? The ultimate downfall of Donald Trump?
I hope so. I mean, it will be interesting to see. I mean, the Trump loyalists are going to stay with Trump, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But they've been praising Elon for so long. I mean, their words are out there. It's going to be hard for them to just go back on it. I mean, Trump's doing it. Trump pulled out the Trump derangement syndrome card, which as if it's something like the flu that you catch, right? But obviously that's not the case. But that's the best he could do, and he cannot come up with some sort of convincing argument for why Elon changed his mind. I mean, he's already said, well, maybe we'll cancel his government contracts, because that's the leverage he has. But what can he do? He's praised this guy so much for so long. How could he possibly throw him to the wolves and be credible? And maybe they don't.
Well,
Maybe he doesn't have to be credible. Maybe he
well,
doesn't.
maybe he doesn't, but something like with the Jeffrey Epstein thing.
Yeah.
Republicans were convinced it was all Democrats involved in this, and we've got to see the list, and we've got to see the list, and people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel were screaming, "We got to see the list. You got to open this up because Hillary Clinton this and Bill Clinton that." So now we've got Kash Patel and Dan Bongino running the FBI, and they
Mhm.
say,
Ooh.
and they and they say Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, did he? They go, the same guys who said no, he never killed himself. It was a conspiracy. Now they're saying, yeah, he did commit suicide. I saw the video, which
Mhm.
and MAGA's pissed off about it because they don't believe it. And
No.
then when you have Elon Musk saying Donald Trump's on the list and that's why he's not releasing it, that's going to get these fuckers thinking.
Yeah.
Well, I want to see the list. I
Yeah.
want to see the list. And Donald Trump saying no, so maybe he is on the list.
Well, of
I
course
think
he's
what
on
he,
the list.
well, yeah, well, we know
Yeah,
that, but dumb
yeah,
fucks don't.
true.
But I think there was a fair amount of damage. You know, whether they stop and they calm down or not, there was enough damage and enough reason for people to give it some thought, which is rare enough in this world anyway, to have anybody give any thought to anything. But I think there was some damage done there, and they will try to tamp it down. But I think this is just the start of the snowball running down the hill. It's caused a certain amount of uncertainty by people who seem to be certain for so long.
Well, I have to throw this in. Would it matter if Trump were on the list to his base? I don't think so. If they forgive everything else that he has done in plain sight and continues to do in plain sight, I mean, he pardons a guy whose mother gave him $1 million. You know,
Yeah,
a guy who was on who was convicted, was going to jail, was going to have to pay back $20 million. Trump pardons him because his mother gave Trump $1 million. If you can let that slide, if you can let stealing government documents slide, if you can let rape slide, if you can let all of the things that he did in office slide, if they can let the crypto thing slide, where he is just getting money from foreign people for no reason other than they want to give him money to buy his influence, which is all his
right.
crypto coin is about. It's not an investment, it's a bribe. We know that. If they can let that go, are they really going to be convinced because his name is on a list of flying to an island where he can have sex with underage girls, which we already knew he did?
Yeah.
Does the fact that Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Dershowitz, and others are on that same list, does that make any difference? I don't know. I think they're all sleaze bags, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, it cost Bill Gates his marriage, you know, and
Well, it's
uh,
it's like when I was talking to the Trumplefuck yesterday on the live. He said Democrats are calling all Republicans racist. Do you agree with that? I go, I do. Like,
yeah,
how can you say that? You know, not everybody's a racist. I said, look, if you're not a racist, but you vote in support a racist,
you're
you're at the
racist.
very least an accessory after the fact.
Yeah,
You support, well, that's not true. No, it's absolutely fucking true.
yeah,
If I'm sitting in my house and I have somebody that's going to go out and kill somebody and I give them a gun,
mhm.
I'm going to jail too, motherfucker. And that's the way it is with these people that support racist. But they don't get it. And there's going to be a lot of people, you know, running away from Donald Trump ultimately, and that'll be interesting. The other thing I've been thinking about too, and I've said this before, Donald Trump has been untouchable by a lot of people because they're terrified of him. I said the moment somebody jumps on his shit and everybody sees it safe, there's going to be a fucking monkey pile on Donald Trump. They're
Oh,
all going to be
absolutely.
jumping on.
Yeah, they're good. Well, it'll be like I mentioned the fact that he had a news conference with the German chancellor, whose name I
Right.
forget, but the other day on D-Day or with the D-Day holiday coming up, it was mentioned, and Trump said to the German chancellor, "Well, that wasn't such a great day for you." And the German chancellor said it absolutely was. It freed us from the Nazis.
Right.
So, and you will find this pretty predominant in Germany. Now, there's a right-wing element that loved Hitler and still there. You know, most of them went to South Africa and Argentina and places like that, but and here. But the German populace in general saw the error of their ways, and you don't. It's illegal to have a swastika. It's illegal to speak well of Hitler and so forth.
Right.
They were, you know, maybe Nazi sympathizers, or at least they were deluded by the Nazis, whatever. But these people realize the errors of their ways, and they are very good about policing it. If we did the same thing with racists here, that would be telling. But if you are out there like all the Republicans are now, every fucking one of them out there, including the black ones, which to me is just insane. They're
Makes
out
no
there,
sense.
they're out there saying we need to get rid of this DEI stuff. You know, they're all saying that. And that means purging the names of minorities from anything to do with the Defense Department, whether it's the name of his ship or Harvey Milk, the gay activist who was murdered in San Francisco, has a boat named after him because he was in the Navy, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and it should be. They're changing the name. Why? Because oh, it's terrible to have DEI, diversity, inclusion, and so forth. If that's racist, if you are in support of that, you are racist, whether you are a politician voting for it or the person voting for the politician and supporting them. You are a racist. You simply are, because you are supporting racism.
Well, when I was talking to this Trump fuck yesterday, I said, "What is it about DEI that bothers you?" I mean, think of the words. Which word don't you like? He says, "No, no, I think it's all good." I said, "Then what's your problem?" And the problem is Republicans have been able to convince people that DEI basically means we are becoming prejudiced against white people. White people are being shorted somehow with DEI. And I said, that's not how it works. I mean, if you are playing golf against somebody and you've got a better golfer and a lesser golfer, the golfer will get a handicap in order to make things even. And that's what DEI does. It says, well, black people just have as much opportunity as we do. And I said, well, clearly you're white because that's not true. We know it's not true. Look how the police treat people of color. Look at how our immigration treats people of color. They're fucking sending away people that happen to be black that are citizens of this country. So don't tell me it's even. This is a way to balance it out, not a way to take away from white people. And the fact that you believe that is racist at the core.
Exactly. And they never think of it that way. They think of it, well, I didn't get anything extra, and that's not the point. Whether you got anything extra or not is not it all to be considered. It's whether the black person suffered because of their skin color. When they walked in for the interview, did they lose 10 points because they were black? And they did. That's what
Yeah,
it comes down to. So,
absolutely.
in being forced to be even-handed, to not consider race, to not consider gender, to not consider sexual choice or anything other than your qualifications on paper, then that is all DEI is. It's leveling the playing field so that not that anyone gets anything extra, but that everybody competes equally.
Well, you were talking about the Republicans and the Democrats having some problems too, um, and we're kind of seeing that now. You notice that there is no real leader to the Democratic Party, no
None.
no specific. And one of the things I thought why that is because the Republicans only have one strategy. That's
Yep.
to attack who the opponent is. So why give them 3 years to attack one person till 2028? Why do that? Why not just try to solidify the group and come up with some strengths? But the Democrats really have a lot of problems right now. The Democrats are woefully divided. You've got the establishment and you got the young people. We have the oversight committee where AOC wanted to be the ranking member. They said no fucking way. They put uh, an older guy who's now dead
Mhm.
um, instead of AOC. But now Jasmine Crockett is running for that same position. And I said in a TikTok, I said, Democrats, don't fuck this one up. This
No.
is an important move. We need to give the young people the chance to take over this party. And I said, listen, man, we don't need politicians anymore. The whole politician thing isn't working. We need fucking warriors. We need street fighters. You may not like it. It may be distasteful to you, but this is where we are and this is what we need. And she is certainly one of them. And there are others too that would be great choices over and above the old guys to just sit there and go along to get along and collect their money.
And send strongly worded letters.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, we've got Bernie out there, we've got Tim Walz out there. We've got AOC out there. We've got Pete Buttigieg out there doing, keeping it rolling. But we need all of the Democrats. I would like to see the Democrats at some one point or another stand up and walk out and say, we're not considering this.
Right.
We will
Don't you
not.
think?
We will shut this government down right now if you try to put this thing through at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. Don't you think with Tim Walz, for example, he could have run for the Senate seat that's upcoming in Minnesota. He chose not to do that. Um, maybe he wants to continue to be governor. I don't know. Maybe he does. But Tim Walz looks like he's running for president. He's
Yes.
going he's going down and giving speeches in South Carolina, the first place that you're going to have a fucking primary. He's out in California. He's all over the place. In my mind, Tim Walz is running for president right now. Now, I don't know that he could be the candidate. I don't know that he could win, but he has something that's different than, say, a Gavin Newsom, who I think has pretty much destroyed his opportunity to be
Yeah.
the Democratic nominee. But Tim Walz isn't your standard politician. He isn't the standard establishment guy. He says things that maybe bother some people. And I think that's why Donald Trump got elected. People, they should take note that people are tired of the establishment uh, standard politician. That's why they voted for Donald Trump. They wanted something different. So if they can establish Tim Walz or somebody that's reasonably minded, but still different and outside the establishment, I think that's the guy or woman who is going to win the presidential election.
I want a candidate who knows their own mind. I don't want a candidate when it comes time to fill the cabinet who talks to a lot of other people. I want a guy going, or a woman going in there who has their cabinet in mind, who has already talked to them, so that
Yeah.
the day one they say, "This is my cabinet, confirm them, and we'll get on with it." And quite frankly, if I had a choice for who would run for president, and I don't care which one is the president and which one is the vice, it would be a Minnesota ticket. It would be Tim Walz and it would be Amy Klobuchar. But if Amy Klobuchar had been Biden's attorney general, Donald Trump would be rotting in prison right now.
I agree. I agree. They missed the boat there. And, that's the thing. You look back at Biden and he may have been diminished and he did a lot of great things, but he fucked up some things.
Oh,
And every president fucks up things. But people have been talking a lot about Buttigieg
yeah.
as a presidential candidate. I think it would be a great presidential candidate, except I say, look, the guy's been a mayor in a town in Indiana and been the transportation director. I don't think he's experienced enough. He's smart enough. He's verbal enough that he could do it. But I don't, and he's gay. So we are still wondering what this country is about because it seems like sexism and racism is still a big factor in this country,
Always
not
will
just
be.
with Republicans, but with Democrats too. Why is
I can tell you why. I don't
Sure.
want to interrupt you, but I can tell you
No,
exactly
no.
why. It's the religion.
Yeah,
A
it
goodly
is.
portion of this country are religious to the point that they would never vote for a woman because of um, I'm just going to say it, the lies
Yeah.
in the New Testament fabricated. First and Second Timothy and Tobias or Titus are fabricated. They're not real. Paul did
Yeah.
not write them. So the stuff they're using about women uh, is not Christian. Okay, throw that shit out. And the same thing about gays, right? But it is still that taint is still there, and that if that's your primary look, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or whatever you may be, if you primarily identify as a quote Christian, and my God, who knows what that is anymore? There's so many different definitions. That's going to influence how you vote for women, for gays, for minorities, for that matter, because there's still a lot of racism within that too.
And, with somebody like Pete Buttigieg, I like to see him have a higher position, maybe at some point down the road run for president. But I could see Tim Walz with Buttigieg as a VP, J.B.
Yeah.
Pritzker as Buttigieg as a VP. You got
Mm-hmm.
white guys that should satisfy the racist and the sexist out there. But you know who the most popular Democrat in the country is right now? The most popular They took a poll. The most popular Democrat right now. Who do you think that is?
I'm going to say Jasmine Crockett.
No, it's actually AOC.
Oh, okay.
AOC.
Well, in the same boat, say in the same. Well, my wife and I were talking about that earlier. Pete Buttigieg had a great quote the other day. Somebody asked him, "Well, how can should you run to the center?" And he said, "Quite frankly, if you run to the left, they're going to call you socialist. If you run to the center, they're going to call you socialist. So go with your convictions." And I think AOC does that. So I'm super happy to hear that.
Well, yeah, and but the problem is she's a woman of color.
Yeah,
In spite of how popular she is with Democrats, is that racism and sexism going to slow her down? I mean, I would love to see AOC as president because she's smart, she's decisive, she's strong, she doesn't get pushed down. The fact that Tom Horman keeps saying, "We're going to arrest you," and she's going, "Fuck yourself, come get me."
yeah,
That tells me she's got the kind of personality that we need as a president of the United States that's not going to bow to fucking anybody. That's the way it should be. And people say Donald Trump's like that. No, that motherfucker bows to anybody with a handful of cash. He
that's
bows
right.
to every fucking one of them. So we need somebody who has some integrity and somebody who stands up and pushes back, especially against bullies. AOC would do that. I think JB Pritzker would do that. Jasmine Crockett certainly would do it. The thing with Jasmine Crockett's got the same problem AOC had the first time she was elected. Everybody loved her, and they said, "Well, she could run for president." Well, she doesn't have enough experience, enough history to refer to. You need to do your time a little bit before you can say, "I'm going to run for president." People love saying, "Oh, I like her, so let's make her president." That's not how it works. You got to
Uh,
have some substance.
Well, seeing as how I want Amy Klobuchar for either president or vice president, I would be very happy with Jasmine Crockett as Attorney General. She has great legal chops. She does. She's an incredibly intelligent woman. She speaks colloquially, yes,
Uh,
but that is part of her thing because she expresses herself and if people don't get that, then how do they accept Crockett, the senator from Louisiana, not Crockett, Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana, who's a Rhodes fucking scholar. He's a dirtbag, but he puts on this folksy shit that isn't, he's never talked like that until he got to be in politics, right? I'm just a good old boy, bullshit. So if he can get away with it, then let Jasmine be herself and let AOC be herself and let Bernie be himself. They express themselves the way they express themselves. But Bernie, AOC, Pete Buttigieg, all of these people, they are who they are and they're authentic. And if you can't handle authentic, then fuck you.
well, and that's the thing. So many of the politicians aren't authentic. I'll give you a guy who's not authentic. He's definitely not authentic. Is Gavin Newsom, because you
Yep.
don't know where the fuck that guy is,
It's
whether
the
he's a
hair. I'm
Republican.
sorry. It's the
It's the
hair.
hair. He's got the look, he can talk, and people say, "Oh, he must be good." But you got to be authentic. Somebody like Jasmine Crockett, if you're just hearing and not listening, you say, "Oh, that girl's got a little street in her." And maybe
Yeah.
she does. But if you listen to her, she's a smart lawyer. She's very fucking smart. She's smarter than most of the lawyers in Congress right now. She's brilliant. AOC is smart too. Um, there are a lot of them, but people, it goes back to what we said before. People are just looking at the surface and, "Oh, I like that guy. His hair's good." Or, "I like the way that person talks." Or, "He looks like a senator," or, "She looks like a representative." You can't do that anymore. You got to look for the substance. And if there is no substance, you can't vote for those motherfuckers.
No, that's it. And it comes down to one. I just put this up on TikTok the other day, and I'm going to say it here just for the hell of it. If Democrats say that no one should die because they can't afford insulin, Republicans say, well, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That's the difference right there. That's it. That's the difference.
What do you think is going on in the mind of somebody like Joni Ernst? She was
Nothing.
obviously she was yeah, well she was obviously thrown off I'm sure she's arrogant enough to think, and that's rampant amongst the Republicans. Arrogant. I can do whatever I want to do, and people will love me. And then now they're finding out that's not the case. Joni Ernst goes up, and she gets pushback from people, and she doesn't know what to do. So she's angry. And what those people do when they're angry, they'll say something flip or something smart ass. And she did. Now, after that, she got all the blowback, right?
Yeah. And then she doubles down.
She doubles down. She couldn't step back from it. She had to make a bigger smartass comment. And you have to wonder, and I've asked people about this before, are they not afraid of not getting reelected, or are they so arrogant that they think they're always going to get reelected no matter what they do? I don't understand. I mean,
Well,
if I'm doing something, I think about what's going to happen in the future, and I do or don't do things based on that, and they clearly don't.
well, let's face it, Joni Ernst isn't used to being in the hot seat. You know,
No.
I mean, North Dakota, South Dakota, a lot of the western states, there's fewer people than there are in Hennepin County where you
Right.
live or where
Right.
you have lived, right? Um, they have one representative in Congress and two senators, right?
Right. Right.
They're a small group of people who are very ethnically close. Most of them came over here from Northern Europe. They got a boatload of free land. They never had to struggle other than the typical pioneer struggles. They had to, of course, murder all the Indians and live out on the prairie in the winter in Minnesota, in North Dakota, and South Dakota. That's tough, right? But they
Yeah.
were German, Norwegian, Swedish, and so forth, very tight like that. There are no black people in either state to speak of.
Right.
They've uh, never had to deal with anything, mostly farm issues and so forth. And then they started bringing in Hispanics to work the farms and so forth. So that's become an issue. But by and large, it's just a very small group of people. So once they're in, they figure they're in, is what it comes down to, unless they really screw up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Hopefully, there's going to be awakening by these Republicans comes 2026. And everything that's going on is just making a stronger case for the Democrats to win in 2026. My only worry about it is I felt pretty strong about Kamala and the Democrats in 2024. Are they going to be able to turn it around and actually come through what logically makes sense? Or are they going to be so oblivious and they're going to continue doing what they're doing and fail again?
Well, what I hope is that rather than running to the center, as I still hear a lot of people saying, well, we can't scare the people that are afraid of minorities and so forth and so on. But uh, anybody with a brain, if they look at what that the Republicans are doing, if they look at what they're trying to do, which is destroy the safety net so that
Right.
people actually starve, to take away medication so people actually die, to take away um, clean
Food for
air,
kids.
food for kids, clean air, soil and water, any food safety. They're trying to
Yeah.
destroy all of these watchdog organizations that we put in place that keep us from dying from salmonella, that let us know don't buy that salad because it's tainted, and so forth and so on. That they're trying to do away with all of this and to do away with the judicial system in the sense that it becomes subordinate to the president, to the executive branch, destroy the three tiers that this country is built on so that it all comes under one man, or and it would be a man, of course. But if they can't see that, if they can't accept that is terrible, that it is awful, then I don't know. We should be able to run a dog
Uh,
against Trump and win.
we should be able to. As we're coming toward the end here, I wanted to bring this up. We're hearing a lot about the people on the cabinet, in the cabinet, and it doesn't seem like we have a serious leader in any of the cabinet positions at all.
No,
Uh, we've got McMahon in the education department. She's asked simple questions, has no clue about it. She doesn't have a good answer. We got Cash Patel, who we haven't seen for a while because he's scared to death. We have Dan Bongino coming on TV going, I gave up everything and I'm working so hard and Cash is working so hard. You got RFK Jr. coming out, letting measles run rampant, and then sits down and talks to people and says, we got to quit those vapes because Chinese people are putting gay drugs in the vapes. I mean, how can you even take that seriously? And then you got Pete Hegseth, and what we're hearing about that is military is a very organized, very buttoned down organization. Pete Hegseth is in there. He's not a leader at all. He's doing crazy shit like taking Harvey Milk's name off an aircraft carrier. We understand there's total chaos there. I'm wondering, over and above the evil shit they want to do, how long can they continue to go along with the absolute incompetence? I mean, these organizations need to be run, and we don't have one person that is in any of those positions that know how to run their fucking own lives.
Well, as my first sergeant told me the first week when I was drafted, he said, shit runs downhill and you gentlemen are at the bottom of the hill.
Right.
And that military is very much that way. I mean, it's you're given an order, you take care of it. But at the higher reaches, they have to be really, really wanting to take Pete Hegseth out back and beat the shit out of it.
Yeah.
The military, the career military men I know and women don't screw around. They look, what is my mission? We will find the best way to do it. And that's not always the way that I would choose, but that is their mindset. So at some point, they have to say, and I think I mentioned this once before, while I was in basic training, they showed us a movie that was kind of a fictionalized version of May Lai. With the killing of the villagers, and said, this cannot happen again. If you're given an order to do something like that, it is your duty to disobey that order.
Right. Right.
I was following orders. You hear that now still. I'm just following orders here. Well, that doesn't fly anymore, people. You have a brain and you're expected to use it. Even if you're a private and the general tells you to go kill that guy, you shoot the general.
Well, you make a good point here. We've often talked about that. Will the military just do whatever Donald Trump says? And there may be some that do, and a lot that won't. But you brought up the My Lai massacre situation. For those young people that don't know what that is, and for the old people who remember but don't know the specifics, it was basically Commander William Can
Kelly.
William Calley ordered men to shoot a bunch of women and children and civilians and stuff. And they were just cleaning out whatever they cleaned out. And that ended up being quite a scandal in this country. It was fucking huge news. But that's a perfect example of the military just saying, well, my leader said do this, so I'm doing it. It's got to be right. Hopefully people learn some lessons from that fucking event.
Well, I would like to challenge people, and I know, see, this is a disconnect because when was the last time you were on a military base, Mike?
Never.
Okay, and that's the case for most people. I challenge you if you live near a military base of any kind, Army, Navy, Air Force, doesn't matter. Go to that base, go on that base, and look around and tell me what you see. I'll tell you what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot of black guys and girls. You're going to see a lot of Hispanics and other minorities. Who is making up, and Puerto Rican and so forth. That is who you're going to see the nuts and bolts military in this country.
Yeah.
Now, do you
Yeah.
think when push comes to shove, when they start deporting, when they decide to uh, get rid of black people and send them back to Africa where they've never lived, and neither did any of their ancestors ever, because the slave trade in this country stopped in, I think it was 1808, and every slave that was born in this country every slave in this country after that was born here. They have no connection to Africa. They're
Right.
Americans. Forget the Afro part. They're Americans. And when you start trying to do away with people like that, which is what they have in mind, it
Absolutely.
is, then are those people with their M16s, their M80 machine guns, their tanks, are they going to let their friends and relatives be deported? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I honestly don't. Well, Ed, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. Thank you for stopping in. It's always, I love talking to you because it's always an easy conversation. And I learn a lot, which is important here. I got to learn something, and I do every time you show up. So thank you.
You betcha. It's good fun. And
And it
hopefully,
keeps,
hopefully we make some difference ultimately.
we may, yeah, hopefully we make some difference. And if nothing else, for a couple of old guys to talk on this level and about these types of conversation, it's a nice exercise to keep our minds sharp.
Right. And I have a lot of younger people who will say, gee, I never knew that. I never heard of that. Why didn't I hear about that in school? And I tell them school can only do so much. School teaches you how to find, how to think, how to find information. And after that, it's up to you. They can't
Yeah,
teach you everything. You have to learn it yourself. And many times you have to go out for it.
absolutely. And after having my granddaughter here for 4 days this past week, I love that kid. I'd do anything for that kid, but I need to talk about something more important than Bluey. Bluey's cool. Bluey's cool and all that, but I need to delve a little bit deeper. So those of you listening, thanks for taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.